This week on By the Numbers here on YouTube, we have a special segment just for you. We're talking about Gen Z, ages 16 to 19, coming back to the workforce and what that means for the economy. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and join us as we take you through the numbers. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Lyndsay.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. How was your weekend?
My weekend was nice. It was good weather up here, so we got outside a little bit.
I have a question for you first.
Uh-oh, please.
So I think like back in the 90s or maybe the early 2000s, for some of us, we all had a job. Maybe it was at Abercrombie and Fitch, and maybe it wasn't Abercrombie and Fitch, but like another like brand. And if we're being honest, it was probably because those brands back then were pretty expensive, at least for my parents' bank account. So I was probably working for the discount. So that was maybe driving me to the workforce a little bit more. But this next article is claiming that millennials, which I believe you and I still fall into.
We qualify.
We're actually responsible for a dip in teens contributing to the workforce, but that this next generation, Gen Z, is in this like resurgence of coming back to the workforce. So before we get to the headline, I want to know what your first job was.
Okay, so I was not cool enough to work at Abercrombie and Fitch. I think that should go without saying. No, I'm such a nerd, Lyndsay. My first job was at the town library. I was a children's librarian as my first job. It was a summer job.
I love this.
Yeah, I know, it's so me.
It is.
Yes.
It's perfect for you.
Thank you. And I did it all through high school and actually into college. I loved working at the library.
That's why you have such a good speaking experience, because you have a great speaking voice because you've read to children. You have a great stage presence because you've had to keep them engaged for years.
We did a lot of crafts, I'll put it that way. I have a lifelong hatred of glitter from that job.
Oh, don't we all? If you have children, you too hate glitter. Yes. Okay. But
what was your first job? I need to ask you.
Okay. My first job with a worker's permit, by the way. I remember I had to go to the office at my high school and get a paper and have it signed.
Yes.
I grew up in central Massachusetts, so I know that you're going to probably laugh when I tell you the mountain that I worked at, because it's probably not a mountain compared to the mountains that you climb. But I worked at Wachusett Mountain. I worked in the Polar Kids, and I was doing reservations for ski lessons, getting them all like checked in, set up with their little like pennies and their rentals and everything.
That must have been so fun.
Sending them out on the slopes till I got the phone call that was like, "Hey, so and so puked. She's coming down. Can you come get her? She's coming down the ski lift."
Oh, outstanding.
Yeah, so that was my first job, also with children.
Yeah, interesting. Funny how we all got here some way or another. But so Gen Z, apparently they're ahead of the curve.
Yeah, so this headline, Gen Z drives a teen job comeback.
Yeah.
So Gen Z is reversing a decades-long decline in teen employment. So the article is taking a look at the U.S. labor force participation rate with regards to the age bracket of 16 to 19 years old. And I'm going to start this one because I found this article.
Yes, I would like to give Lyndsay full credit for finding this article. And there was a lot of good stuff here. We had fun.
I was reading it while drinking my morning coffee, so I thought maybe you were too. So I sent it to Lauren, and her research team actually had numbers and information to add to it. But I want to start with my theory when I read this article.
All right, let's hear it.
And this is because I have lost many a babysitter to the real world.
Oh, goodness.
Or they'll be like, "Oh, I got a real job." Like, well, I was paying you. That was a real job. But basically that, I think it's because I look at the signs for job openings. Target, I saw Taco Bell, $18 an hour.
You're kidding.
My babysitter works at Target right now, and they're doing tuition reimbursement.
Yes.
Like, you'd be crazy to babysit for $20 an hour if you could get those added benefits at $15 to $18 an hour.
Absolutely. It's a tight labor market.
Yeah.
And so that is, I agree with you, probably encouraging a lot of kids. This labor force participation rate, by the way, for 16 to 19-year-olds, it's currently 35.5%.
Wow.
If you ignore the pandemic kind of snap down, the low was in 2014, which again is kind of our millennial generation at about 30%. And by the way, this labor force participation, that includes part-time, full-time, temporary, and year-round jobs. So it's not just working full-time year-round. It does include some part-time too.
Well, I think they have to, because I think a lot of those kids are coming, I guess closer to the latter half of that age bracket. But, they're probably going off to school and then coming back for these seasonal jobs over Christmas break or winter recess and
working
summer
the
break
summers.
as well.
And some of it, again, 16 to 19-year-olds, a lot of them are still in high school. It could be a part-time job that they're doing after school.
True, yeah.
So that would also be included here. And I think when you see those hiring signs, right, sign-on bonus and all of these perks and all of these benefits, it's easy to say, hey, I can do my homework a little later and I can start saving up for
Nobody
college,
was giving me a sign-on bonus.
No.
I don't know if I've ever gotten one. Never mind when I was 16.
Yikes, yeah.
I would definitely be going for those jobs.
Exactly. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I want to show this in chart form. This chart is actually from the article. So we pulled this directly out of this article. This is from Axios. So since, and we start back in the 50s or so here, you see kind of that, long-term rise, right? We had the boomers, we go through Gen X. Millennials, are really the time when this participation rate fell amongst 16 to 19-year-olds. Now we see a little bit of rise much more recently. But what's really interesting to me is if I compare this chart to the overall labor force participation rate, so all age groups, in April, this was 62.5% participation in the workforce. You see kind of a similar trend, right? Like eerily similar here.
Right.
So overall labor force participation, again, it had been rising pre-pandemic. We got kind of that cutoff with the pandemic shaking things up.
Yeah.
Now participation is rising again. So some of this is just attracting those, maybe marginally attached workers back to the labor force. If the terms are so good, you'll make it work. You'll get that job.
Right. And I think just judging by like what we constantly talk about with the labor market, employers have to be incentivizing people and probably maybe loosening up on who they hire or what age, what experience, because you just need to get the bodies in. And
that's some of the best advice that I've been able to give our clients is expand your scope. You're not looking for a 4-year college graduate who has the typical resume that you've always looked for, right? That candidate, it just isn't out there in the labor market right now. I had one client actually, he said it back to me. He said, I used to look for my manufacturing line. I was looking for, he said, a CNC machine operator right now. It's like finding a purple unicorn.
Oh, gosh.
I used to look for finding a purple unicorn candidate. Now I just need a golden retriever. I need someone who is happy and, positive, right? Doesn't bring us down, but eager to learn and enthusiastic and wants to do the job. I can teach them the job.
Yeah.
So going outside of that traditional candidate profile, maybe it's a parent. Maybe they need mother's hours, right? They want to put the kid on the bus at the beginning of the day, pick them up at the end of the day, make a manufacturing line, work that shift. Maybe it's, so something that I've seen in my own in-laws family business is they really went after re-entry programs for ex-convicts. A lot of those, it's hard to hire with a criminal record, but those are good people who made one mistake, right?
Right.
Did their time. They're now trying to struggle to get back in. So looking for a different candidate. We had one client who had a really fantastic training program for differently abled individuals. And maybe you need different accommodations. Maybe you need a different training program. But these are just incredible people who, if you give them the chance, can be some of your best workers.
Yeah. So it's not your boomers job market. It's really causing employers to have to think outside of the box.
They have to think outside the box. And those who do, yes, will absolutely come out ahead. So maybe it is hiring 16 to 19-year-olds. They can't work all the hours you want, right? Maybe they're not working full time, but if you really, really need that candidate, you're going to try to attract them.
And if you're good enough to them, they may go off to college. And if your tuition reimbursement program has them lock in for a little bit, they'll come back and they maybe become a long-term tenured employee for you.
Yes.
And
you brought up actually one of my favorite strategies. And I think this in kind of a circular way, plays back into this article and into my theory for what could be behind it. But if you have a training program, we've seen this, especially in things like construction. A lot of our clients are really targeting high school students. And they're saying, come, work for us in an internship program after school. We will teach you to be an electrician. At the end of this program, you'll have your, you can do the test, right? Take your master electrician or master carpenter, plumber, whatever certification. Because we train you in what we need. We train you in our way. We don't have to break bad habits that you learned somewhere else. You do exactly what we need.
That's a good point.
You have a guaranteed job. Come work for us. It's a win-win for many people.
Yeah, I love that.
But my theory, and again, I don't have data to really prove this out. I can really only posit because some of the data suggests this. I think the trades are making a comeback.
Yes.
And I think a lot of these younger workers, they're not seeing the same need for the traditional 4-year college degree, and they're just going into the workforce. You can make really, really incredible money as a plumber or a carpenter or any of those trades that we mentioned. So there's a demand, like I said, 295,000 job openings in construction. I think this generation is starting to shift that way much more than the millennials had.
Well, and it sounds like there's kind of a job out there for everybody. I mean, it might not be in your chosen field, but it's not like these 16 to 19-year-olds are taking our jobs. There's nobody saying that. We're welcome. No. We're welcoming them in.
Oh, absolutely.
And I love what you said about the trades. This was years and years ago, but the governor of New Hampshire had come to talk to a company that I used to work for prior to come to ITR, and somebody had asked the question about like tuition. What are they, grants, grant money. And he actually had an initiative for grant money available to get folks into the trades, which I thought was incredible.
Yes.
And the more I've worked with ITR and the more that I've heard the need for that, I haven't tracked that. I don't know where that ended up, but I hope that exists in more than just New Hampshire.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
And we do see, again, the best data I have here really comes back to college enrollment levels. Those, by the way, are down overall. Mostly because Gen Z is a smaller generation than the millennials. So we just don't have that many college-aged students aging into typical college years. But what we see after many years of decline in enrollment in 2-year colleges, that enrollment is making a huge jump right now versus 4-year enrollment's kind of trending more flat. So is that the associate's degree instead of the bachelor's degree, right? There seems to be a little bit of a shift.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I think we heard every adult say, you have to go to college. You have to get that 4-year degree. It's just not the same relationship anymore.
No, I've totally noticed that. I say, even with my sister's age, she's 4.5 years younger than me. I don't know if that puts her in a different generation, but it wasn't when are you going to college? Excuse me. It wasn't, are you going to college? It was, where are you going to college?
Exactly.
And then I saw that shift like 4.5 years later with my sister. My sister did go to college, by the way. But, a lot of folks being like, oh, I'm going into the trades, or I don't feel like I need a college education. So I think that makes sense. But another thing that I picked up on there, when you're comparing this Gen Z generation to the millennials in terms of size, like they're just smaller than us.
They are just smaller.
I want to point out that this article did a little bit of millennial bashing, which, I think at this point we're all used to it. So the millennial labor force participation was especially low in the 2000s, but we were being comped against the boomers and the Gen Xers.
Yes.
And in the 1980s, nearly 2 in 3 16 to 19-year-olds were working or actively looking for work. I don't know if things like workers' permits that I had to get at 14 existed back then. But I think that you were starting work at such a younger age. I know that my parents were, and when my parents talk about their first jobs, they were pretty young.
Yes.
So I think it's when you have to put it back into perspective and always look at the comparisons, what you're comparing here. You're comparing Gen Z to the millennials. That's a different sized group of people.
Exactly. It is. And it's just a different historical time, right?
Yeah.
I laugh because I started work, I forget if I was 15 or 16, but about as early as you could.
Yeah.
At one point I got a raise in my tenure there at this library, and they phrased it as such. They said, you're getting a raise, you're getting, I forget how much more it was per hour. It turns out I had been at the minimum wage and the minimum wage increased. That's why I got a raise. They couldn't pay me what they had been paying me. we don't see that trend anymore with these Gen Z. So give us millennials a break.
Yes, I mean, for sure. Well, I think that rounds out our show for today. We've touched on home prices, we've touched on home sales, insurance premium costs, making it expensive to keep or purchase that new home, the American spending spree. Is that coming to a halt? I don't know. But then you have Gen Z coming back into the workforce and, giving it that little extra nudge.
Well, they're going to change things up just like the millennials did. So give us something new to talk about.
All eyes on the new generation then.
Always.
That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us here at By the Numbers. Bye, Lauren.
Bye, Lyndsay.